Hello, everyone, and welcome to February the 12th, regular town council meeting for the town of Vegreville. Call this meeting in order. It's 7:01. To order. Okay, first off, we'll be looking for a motion for the adoption of the agenda. Councillor Lemko, nice to see you back. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Next, the adoption of our last regular council meeting. I'm looking for a motion. Oh, Councillor Berry's first. Any errors or omissions within those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Well, we're very lucky tonight. We have a delegation regarding the Community Child Care Initiative. And we're ready to go. You just want to tell everybody who you are and what your role is here.
Definitely. So I'm very excited to be here tonight on behalf of the Community Child Care Initiative. My name's Latanya Sankey, and I'm the FCSS Community Development Coordinator. And then with us too, we also have 2 daycare staff members as well to speak to anything that is kind of daycare related and the stuff that is coming up around that.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight, ladies.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna start the presentation. Is it good to go? Okay, while that's going up, I can kind of just give a little bit about FCSS's role in the Community Child Care Initiative, how it all came about, just kind of that general information. So the goal of this initiative is to create resiliency and capacity of childcare in Vegreville. FCSS has kind of held a few different roles with this initiative, our main role being the convener, so bringing people together. We've also been the capacity builder, the educator, and the coordinator. All of those roles has been to enhance and really strengthen this initiative going forward and support where we can. So we're going to first talk about establishing connections. So we heard the need in the community back in November. There's no childcare spaces, it's long wait lists, there's a demand, all of these things that have been kind of buzzwords around the community. And from there, we kind of brought everyone together. We convened, we held a meeting and discussed those important questions. And then following that, we had our strategic planning in the spring, which led to the terminology that you're about to see here on the next slide. So childcare kind of falls in that later stage prevention. It's mostly around that number 3 one. So it's multiple, complex, and long-standing difficulties that require individualized services. It's not just one thing. There's so much more to this childcare aspect than just one. And then if you go to the next slide as well, you'll see that from that strategic planning, childcare was one of the things that came up as a need in Vegreville. However, this didn't fall under the FCSS mandate directly, but there was ways that we could support. One of the ways was being the convener, and that was through the FCSS directive of helping people and communities to assume responsibility for decisions which affect them. You can also see that it was identified some of the municipality role that could be, such as the advocacy, but these are all just potential roles, right? This chart isn't set in stone. There is ways to move around it. If you want to go to the next slide. So back in that meeting in November, the goal was really to just pull agencies, caregivers, community together and really get down to the root causes. What is making childcare difficult? What are the barriers? What is really going on in Vegreville around childcare? And then one more. So there was 3 questions that were asked. The first question is, what is currently being offered for quality childcare, and is it meeting the need? And then next slide. So it was really important to first define to community the definitions of childcare. You hear childcare, what is that? There is licensed facilities, licensed day homes, unlicensed childcare, and child and youth care programs. Now there is a difference. Licensing is daycare, out of school care, and preschool. It is also government inspected, monitored. There are quality standards. They have to work with licensing to meet those, as well as families can access subsidy and they can take a greater amount of individuals. Where licensed day homes, they operate with a little bit of smaller numbers, but they are still a standardized license. So they do fall under the family day homes in Alberta. And then there is unlicensed childcare, so private day homes, kind of that informal childcare, friends, family, grandparents, caregivers, babysitting, whatever it may be. That is that unlicensed childcare. 6 children recommended, but it's not monitored. There's no subsidy and no education required to provide that unlicensed childcare. And then there's also child, youth, and family programs. There's a lot of agencies in town, such as FCSS ourselves, that do provide some of those. The biggest difference is the staff education varies. So no one is early childhood educated. There might be some people, but they're not in that capacity, in that role. We can take greater amount of individuals, but again, it's not about the childcare. It's about enhancing learning and development. And there's variation in outcomes and times offered. So, it's not 7:30 to 5 o'clock come and, it's maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock. Like there's different times for that. So then from there, we sat around as a committee and discussed, as at that meeting with agencies and caregivers, and we're like, what is currently being offered? So if we want to go to the next slide. We'll see that we do have licensed childcare here in Vegreville. So the out-of-school care, Ale, Horton, and St. Martin's, pre-K, and then the Vegreville Community Daycare. As of right now, there are no licensed day homes in the town of Vegreville. The biggest barrier to that was the amount of reporting and documentation needed. It was noted that those have changed those standards, but not too sure where that stands, and we still do not have any licensed day homes in town. We
So,
do.
Tanya,
Yep.
just so I don't forget.
No, go ahead.
Moving forward. We do not, at this time, have any licensed day homes.
No.
Was there a time that we did?
In the past, yes. Actually, FCSS held that family day home contract, but the reason that it did not continue is there was not enough interest in day homes being registered because of the work required.
There was a lot of red tape to go.
Yeah, a lot of reporting, meal plans, family plans, everything like that. And I know even our own daycare explored that option a few years ago and was met with some similar challenges as well. What? Yeah, that's even, we asked some of the private day homes, would you be willing to become a license? There's all of these great things. And no, because it's easier to run as a business versus a licensed day home.
Just too many regulations
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah,
And the pay's no better.
no. Yeah, you can access more subsidy grants, everything like that, but that's only if you're a licensed day home operating through that process.
So some of the changes that are being offered in childcare in this country today have forced some businesses out of business.
Yeah, there's a whole section on that coming
Oh,
up.
sorry.
No, all good. Just like you're preluding to some things that are really important in this initiative that the committee has looked at.
I just found it weird because I know that at one time we used to have quite a bit.
Yeah.
We had quite a few.
Yeah.
I had 12 at one time when we first opened, but over the years, it's just became a lot of work for day homes, and we got to a point where people just simply didn't want to do all the work that was required, and they've made those changes.
Yeah.
I just have one question.
Yep.
So before the ones that were licensed day homes at the time that we had them, who had to apply for any of the subsidies? Would it have been that day home, or was it the child that would have to apply? Which way was it? You were doing them all?
FCSS, they
Okay.
monitored it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Providing had to. Okay.
And it's a lot of administrative work behind the scenes that really happens with that family day home grant.
To be clear,
Yeah. No, stop me at any time if you guys have any questions.
And just to be clear, when this stopped, when there were no more licensed day homes, was about 8 years ago. 6 years ago. It's a substantial amount of time ago, so I think it's really important even just to have this as an option. Here, to be fair, this has not been an option for Vegreville area parents for a long time. So literally, those kids that could have been accessing that childcare at that time are now in school or out of school. So that's not even, this is an option that has not been present for parents for quite some time.
The
Right.
license.
Licensed
yeah.
day homes.
And there is the misconception too that, day homes are licensed. They have a business license, but they do not fall under family day home licensing. So while they do have a business license, it's not licensing for early childhood.
Go ahead, Julie.
those parents do not receive the subsidies, the government subsidies if the day home's not subsidized. And
Like a private day home can have more.
That was a big challenge when we were trying to do our recruiting.
I think now they've changed. I think even now, if the private day home, if there's concerns, licensing, even though they're not licensed, can come, and there's still supposed to be only the set amount. So we hope that if anyone sees anything that is concerning, that they do report that information.
You can report it, yeah. On the Family Day Home government webpage, they talk about, you know, all of that on if you're suspecting something, what to do and all of that. And then going back to the unlicensed childcare, there is a lot of informal childcare, such as grandparents, family, friends, neighbors, really those natural supports. Can you watch my kid? Or like that kind of informal is really big here. And then child and youth programs are not intended to support childcare due to the staff education and as well as the times, and that's not their mandate. There's often the assumption that it is, but it is not. Sizzling Summer is one of those as well. Sizzling Summer runs under a program, not a licensed facility. And then if we go to the next slide. Then we started discussing question 2. So the question 2 results, if we go to the next slide, when people first came in, they got to put their sticker on what they thought were the biggest challenges in childcare in Vegreville. As you can see, quality, specifically quality defined as the child's safety, well-being, and development is supported, is the #1 thing under staff, and then no available spots, and then hours of care, and then school summer breaks. So those were identified as some of the biggest barriers for childcare in Vegreville. And then if we go to the next slide, it breaks it down a little bit more. So it talks about, you know, the difficulty of keeping quality staff, how hard that is, you know, the burnout, low wages, no incentives for more training, recruitment and retention, and just the lack of value for the early childhood care profession. And really recognizing that staff aren't just babysitting, they are providing quality care. They are supporting and developing your child's life in that moment. And then it goes into quality agency providers, cost. We've kind of touched on this a little bit already in some of these discussions. Does anyone have any questions about the things on there so far?
Well, just the quality of staff.
Yeah.
So I was made aware sometime today what a pay grade is.
Yeah, and we have that coming up in Undermining of the Profession, where it breaks down all of that information for you guys nicely.
So, well, just my question would be,
Yep.
do the provincial and federal government understand what the problem is? I mean, because they're the ones that provide education, and if somebody's picking a career,
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah, and that goes into the affordability grant, which we have coming up, where that talks about, you know, some
I
of the
shouldn't ask any more
restrictions. I know, it's a lot of information, so I'm trying to summarize and give a lot, because there's so much happening with childcare. As stated, it's not one thing, it's complex. There's multiple levels to it.
do you have a question?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, to the point of education, there have been initiatives to try to increase the number of seats in early childhood education facilities, like post-secondary facilities. They've also had initiatives where they top up the wages so that there is an incentive to try to encourage people to stay in the profession. But there hasn't been a widespread understanding how important this is. So I'm very happy, like this council has had a conversation recently about how important it is to our economic development as a community to be able to support the goals that we have, to continue to bring young families here to be able to start their businesses, put their kids in school, and to be able to be the progressive, active community that we have. We cannot do it if we do not consider childcare, because that is the single biggest barrier that any working parent has if they don't have access to childcare. So the timing of you being here and this conversation is kismet. This is perfect.
Yes, and even for the committee, this is perfect too, because I'll touch on that a little bit later, but that is one of our goals. No, questions are great, because then I could tell you to wait a little bit, because the great information's coming up, so you know what to expect. Next slide. And then we also discussed, quality of licensing, and then school and summer breaks. That's a really big gap. As summer's coming up, to start thinking about that. There's really only one childcare facility that offers for that school age during summer breaks, right? So they have limited capacity as well. So that is a gap for that as well. Transportation, we know the daycares and St. Martin's are located, kind of not central to town, so that can be a barrier to families. No available spots, but there's still the barrier of, if we do expand, quality staff, right? And the cost for training, and then hours of care. Most of our licensed childcare facilities operate between 7:15 to 5:15. There's nothing really outside of that for shift workers. So if we go to the next slide. We tried to get to question 3 of what can be done differently. And then if we go to the next slide, we can see that we looked at addressing root causes such as provincial and systematic, increase in value in early childhood profession. However, as mentioned, we did run out of time to really break that down because there was such good discussion around the first 2 questions that if we go to the next slide, and then one more to next steps. It really came down to, we needed another meeting. We needed another meeting to really break this down, look at the needs. We know what the barriers are now. Now what can we do? What can be done? So the Community Childcare Initiative put out some posters. We advertised it. We encouraged. We had child minding, tried to reduce as many barriers as we could for community, agencies, and individuals to come to this meeting. And FCSS brought in the Community Development Unit. The Community Development is a really great resource for nonprofits and agencies here in town. There was absolutely no cost to bring them in, and they help look at things from a neutral perspective and dig deeper and get to that root cause. That is their specialty, so we thought bringing them in would be really good for the community to look at it from a different perspective. So if we go to the next slide. FCSS role still at this point was convening, so bringing in the Community Development Unit and bringing people together. From that meeting, if we go to the next slide, we can see that, there was some action planning. It was talked about having a Community Childcare Task Force Coalition, which is the Community Childcare Initiative that you see before you today and are hearing about. Compiling information for programs to present, as well as gathering a list of parents and families in need. We hear the need, but does the data actually show there's a need? As well as, presenting to you guys, inviting you guys to be a part of this, and then information to all community members regarding the effects with the lack of childcare for the community. There were some successes in this meeting. It gave agencies and organizations an action plan to follow. It allowed us to still support within our mandate and provide that support to the Community Childcare Initiative, to agencies and individuals moving forward. However, there was a challenge. It did take a long time to bring the Community Development Unit out. From November to June is a significant time gap. And that was due to planning and scheduling, everything like that, as well as the meeting was heavily advertised. As mentioned, child minding was provided. Again, though, it was primarily agencies and a few community members sitting around that table. So we didn't really have too much community involvement in that one. If we want to jump forward just a few slides. Next. Keep going. And yeah. And so now we're going to talk about community development goals and challenges. So this kind of breaks down what the community initiative has been working on. Why we formed this community initiative. We heard there was a big demand for childcare, but there aren't enough quality spaces in our community. And families often had to pick between being employed and their family's well-being. As well, the value of childcare has gone down and burnout among caregivers has gone up. One of the main reasons for the shortage is not having enough staff. It's hard to find and keep good educators and staff. Quality childcare is one of the best supports for early prevention and intervention with children and families. So if we go to the goals of the committee, we had 3 goals that we're actively working on. Raising awareness about the importance of childcare and early childhood educators. Childcare is an investment in children's well-being, learning, and development. increasing economic and social well-being outcomes for the community. Childcare's impact on the economic and social well-being of a community is one of the first questions asked when families consider moving, and for a community, it is needed to maintain growth, as well as working collaboratively and through partnerships in the community to increase funding for facilities and services. So if we go to the next slide, one more after that. There are some challenges for our community initiative. One of those being is recruiting caregivers and parents to be a part of the community. To be a part of the community initiative has been challenging. As of right now, it's mostly agencies and daycare board members, and it is vital to have every one of those agencies and members at the table. However, it'd be really great if we could have community involvement in this as well. As well as we do have a survey out, and while it has been advertised and it's something the committee is actively working on pushing, which I'll touch base on how that's happening in a little bit here, there are some challenges. We've had it out since October to March, and we still only have 46 responses, but we are working on really pushing that forward. That's the next thing with our committee, as well as capacity. So as mentioned, it's a lot of agencies and board members at the table who are coming to the table because they care. They recognize the need, they understand the need, and they're doing what they can. However, most of them are at capacity of workload and cannot provide the time and resources that the initiative needs, which is why FCSS is also supporting and looking into a grant to maybe have a contract position to really help push this along a little further, as well as exploring the idea of expanding or looking into a new space, but are limited with the capacity of agencies. So that is something our committee has looked at, but again, are limited with the amount of time that can dedicate to this because of full-time agencies and all of that. And then if we go forward a few more slides. Now, these are some of the biggest conversations that we have around the table at this community initiative is the $10 a day daycare, also known as the affordability grant put forward by the provincial government. There are centers closing due to this affordability grant because it does take 4 to 6 weeks for that money to come in from the government to an agency. And many centers do not have the reserves to wait that time, right? They either have to pull from their, and if they're a new center, they don't have those reserves established. And then with the grant as well, costs are low. And with $10 a day centers, they're unable to raise their fees, resulting in not being able to increase wages for staff. If you don't sign the grant agreement, you lose family subsidy and staff wage top-up. As well as children need to attend daycare for a minimum of hours to access funding, resulting in parents holding spots that are full-time, even though they may only need part-time, as well limiting spots available for those most in need of full-time. Are there any questions about the $10 a day daycare? Okay.
Well, I mean, I could start this conversation. So a new facility opens, they don't receive the top-up or the extra for staffing for 4 to 6 weeks?
Yeah, so if they are, so say a new facility opens, they sign that affordability grant, it's a reimbursement grant, right? So you submit, and then if I'm correct, it's a reimbursement? Yeah. You wait the 4 to 6 weeks, and then it comes in the money. So you're always back. So you're always in the negative. You can't ever maintain that greens.
The other part about it, this is not a high margin type of business. So it's not like retail or some place where you might be able to have good months and bad months. This is like a continual deficit that you're running.
Yep.
And if you're starting where there's tight margins, and we've experienced the same issues ourselves here as a municipality, that our largest non-payer of taxation, for example, has been the province in the past. So unfortunately, in this instance, I've heard from many parents, but also operators outside of this community as well, that feel like it's really hamstrung them. They want to do this business, but they can't.
And that's been said too. I've even heard around the community, there are people that outside of our community that want to open a daycare in other communities, and they're being told, don't do it until this $10 a day goes away, because you'll never make the money needed to maintain your growth.
When you do sign up in this agreement, how long is it for?
We're not locked in, but I guess we're signed in until next year, so January of 2025.
So 1 year at a time, or was it?
Essentially, yeah, right now. Sometimes, like in the past, they had it where it would be from the end of March to the beginning of the next following year, so about a year to year and a half, and they keep changing the terms on it.
And have you had any increase that you could pass on more wages to your staff under this contract?
Right now, right now as a daycare, our hands are tied to be able to increase wages, because our daycare right now, we're sitting at, technically, we have about half our families pay fees, half our families don't, we're waiting through the government, but because our childcare fees are so low, and the government is paying so much, our hands are tied and we're locked in, so we're unable to provide raises to our staff, because we don't have that extra money to be able to afford raises.
And if you do pull that money, you're pulling from other areas that you need to give.
And essentially, you're gonna end up doing fundraising opportunities just to be able to provide raises for your staff, as well as the cost of living goes up. But because your hands are tied with the grant, you can't afford as a business.
So if you were writing a program like this to fail, this is ideal. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Imagine if you're for profit.
Oh, I can't even imagine if you wanted to write a program to be successful.
But our fees are so low, like, we've some families pay nothing now. Like, not even $10 a day, nothing. The most expensive fee we have right now would be the preschooler, like the preschool age, so 3+. The most any family pays is $259, and that's not even with them applying for subsidy. So if they applied for subsidy can get up to $266 a month based on your income. So if they applied for subsidy, they would have no childcare fees. So the most our parents are paying is $259, whereas some parents pay nothing, and some pay $20 a month for childcare.
And if this was out in the private sector, it's $1,200 a month?
Depending what their fees are, right?
Well, I'm just saying, if I decided I was gonna start looking after children, I mean, I could probably charge more than $200 some a month for looking after a child.
I think an important part of this conversation, though, is the reason why people would be eligible for a subsidy. So yes, of course, you can run a private for-profit daycare, but if parents are working and they're eligible for subsidy, it's because they don't make a certain level of income. So even in that instance, I'll look back at my own example. We were paying, and this is a long time ago, we were paying $3,000 for 2 kids back in the day. So this is, at your daycare. So, there is always that opportunity. I think the problem, even that you've highlighted here, is that the focus is being placed on the $10 a day. That's not the issue. The issue is that the person that's paying, or the entity that's paying, is not paying in a timely manner. In this case, it's the province. Not to be too political, but that's where the issue lies. So if you have subsidy, your payer is not the parent, it's the province. If you don't make that threshold and you're eligible for the $10 a day daycare, the province is the one that is the payer to pay the business, whether it's a Vegreville daycare or it's a subsidized day home or a licensed day home. That's the issue. It's not the price, it's the payer.
That's the biggest barrier. It's been on the news too that some of the daycares are doing walkouts because of this grant, because it really ties the agency's hands, right? Like, it's either you sign the grant or you don't get this. So.
It can't be successful the way it's built right now.
Yeah.
And the walkouts have been very contentious with parents who still need childcare. So it's not, it's actually, like, there's been a lot of places where daycares are refusing to close because their clients, their children that are at their daycares can't have childcare and their parents are upset. It's really a pickle.
It's a complex issue with multiple things to it, right? It's not just straightforward. And then if we go to the next slide. Two, it's long wait lists. So parents are holding spots but are not attending due to low cost of childcare, as well as scared to lose childcare in the future if needed, so they continue. One of the things we have heard is our day home wait lists are getting longer in the community. Families are piecing together multiple places to ensure they have childcare or driving out of town. Individuals are having to decide between work or staying home because their child does not have a spot, and people are not moving to town because of the lack of childcare spaces. As well as if we go to the conversations around the table. So next slide. This is what I was talking about, undermining of the profession. So the conception that childcare is not essential or the work and care is undervalued. This is one of the most important conversations we have around the table. And it's one of the most important things as we've seen, the quality staff. So wages are low for childcare profession. When hiring, people are often declining because of the wage for the amount of work. It's broken down here what a level 1, level 2, and level 3 makes without top-up. So that's without that grant from the government. Then on average with top-up, what they make, and then how much the government on average is contributing per level 1s, 2s, and 3s.
Go ahead.
Yep.
So, for example, can you just tell us what education or what they would have taken to be a level 3, for example? Just to kind of get an idea, because it would help going like, oh,
Yeah, I'll go to the daycare that has that
Yeah.
education to kind of expand on that.
So for level 1, essentially it's a free online course. Anyone can take it. It's accessible to anyone online to access level 1. As for level 2, you can take it online through many colleges, universities. A lot of us have taken it through Lakeland College. Some have taken it online while working because of the different funding that has been available to staff. So essentially your level 2s and 3s are online through a college, university. I did mine in school, so I had my first year, which I got my level 1. My second year, I got my level 2 and level 3. So your level 1, you were considered like an assistant, 2 is a worker, and 3 is your highest level, which you're considered a supervisor. So that's when you have the entitlement to run a daycare and have the extra, I guess, opportunities that come with your certification.
So level 3, though, it would be fair to say would come with a minimum of 2 years worth of schooling.
Yes.
Department. Okay.
Yeah, if you were to take it full-time at Lakeland, it is 2 years.
2 years.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And that's like, it breaks down to like the development of the child. We learn so much. It's not just, and it breaks down even from infant, toddler, preschool. We we just don't walk into the job and babysit, as people.
And you guys do have placements too, correct? Like that you do like practicums
Yes,
with
we-
each
yes.
learning too, to get that hands-on experience in the room as well.
Yeah, each semester that you do within school is followed by a 1-month practicum, so it's a 4-week period of you get a placement, and you get to pick and choose different placements and availabilities based on your interests.
Wow, go ahead.
And what is the cost to someone to do a level 3?
So we both have 2 very different experiences of how we did it. I put myself through school, and I'm sitting in $30,000 of debt because of it, whereas Jen. So I did mine a little different. Childcare wasn't my first choice. I got into it 8 years ago. I started at Lakeland College online, and so I did each course. I tapped into professional development and paid a little bit out of pocket. You can take 2 courses per year. That's basically paid from the government, from the professional development grants that are available. So I did my level 3, and I don't owe any money, fortunately. And I always advocate for people that if they can't grab loans, I have a way that you can make it work. It just takes longer. She did it in 2 years. It took me 4 or 5. I had a child in between while going to school, but it can be done. So that's one thing I like to mention, is that if you are interested in this job, even if you can't go to school in class, there's another way, and we're here to help as well.
Yes, because you can work and receive the
Yes.
education at the same time. However, that can be a barrier for some people because working full-time and then taking classes in the evening or where you can be a challenge as well, especially if you're already a caregiver. You got your little ones, plus you're trying to go to school and you're trying to better yourself, but it can be challenging.
But would it be fair if we were advocating to higher levels of government for us to say that in order for somebody to reach that level 3, they, regardless of in which form they did it, they're looking at about a 2-year total time commitment with what could equate to a typical $30,000. Would that be a fair statement?
I mean, it depends, like, on the course load that you're gonna take though, right? Because the nice part though with the grants is the incentives that they created, I guess, with it. So the government pays and covers $2,000 for professional development. And on top of that, they're also giving out $1,600, which is taxed. So if you complete a course, 2 courses, you get this $1,600 for the fiscal year to put it towards whatever you want for the incentives that way. But I guess ultimately it comes down to, yeah, like if you do it the way Jen did, it does take that longer, extensive time. So it makes it harder for those that aren't able just to get up and go to school versus for myself, that was the first move I did, was going straight to school. So it kind of depends which way you're like approaching it, is how long it's going to take you to get your level. Because yeah, it could take you, one person going could be a lot faster.
The unfortunate part about going into school, you don't have access to all this funding. So because you have to get so many hours of childcare to do what I did, where I tapped in professional development. And now it's same with the extra grant, like that, I finished my level 3 and then they came up with, hey, we're gonna pay you guys to do 2 courses per year, which is a little sad for me, but it's great for everybody else, because that means they can take more courses and money not out of their pocket. But you have to be tending and working at a daycare to tap into this funding that they have available.
But staffing levels in this province and in our community are down. We need more people to staff any type of facility to move forward.
That's that's the biggest thing with our daycare even. I don't know if you guys want to talk about some of the staffing challenges you have and what they're really saying when they do have applicants.
So as of right now, we are looking for individuals who are certified at least with the bare minimum of a level 1, because we have licensing standards. They're very finicky on what they want, but it's nice because if they're 18, they have to have their certification. If they don't, you can't leave them alone. They can be a part of ratio, but you can't leave them alone. So if someone needs to step out of the room, you can't, your hands are tied, and you have so many restrictions based on it. But the biggest thing is trying to find individuals who have taken the certification, because I've heard for some it takes a couple weeks, for some it could take a couple months. It all depends on, I guess, how fast they're looking at it. I've personally never done it, so I don't know what the level 1 course looks like. Whereas trying to find people willing to take the course, like there's been a couple people who they've sent emails and they've questioned taking the course, and they don't want to put the time into it if they're not guaranteed a job out of it, because it's time out of their own, it's their own time that why do it if they don't need to?
Plus, you guys have had people decline positions because of the wage.
Yeah.
The average without top-up,
The VEG daycare is below average.
Below, yeah, so.
We've had multiple interviews. Christmas Day, we offered a full-time. The girl declined. We've had another 2 who declined the position. And a lot of them too, they're saying they didn't realize what the work involved in childcare looked like until they stepped foot into the daycare. And I always call it a beautiful, crazy chaos, because it is. Every day is different. It's always different, but when the people have the passion there, they're there for it. I always say it's not a career for money. It's a career because you love it.
And like, again, someone showing up and getting a level 1, if we're gonna pay the minimum wage, but we have all these expectations. Like licensing there's regulations to follow, and it's a lot. So, not on top of caring for kids and their well-being and programming and whatnot, you also have strict rules to follow. So on top of that, together, it's not hard to see why people will
The
decline.
burnout rate.
And again, the burnout rate as well, but even decline when we have nothing to offer.
Do you want to share your burnout rate of your class? Like how many?
So when I went to Lakeland, my final year, there was 15 of us that graduated with our diploma.
for the longest time, I was the only one left in my graduation class, and so I graduated from Lakeland in 2019. There was 15 of us. I was the only one still left in childcare as of right now. My one friend actually, she just recently came back into it, so that makes 2 of us. But out of 15 of us, not many are still a part of childcare because of the high burnout rate. And like I said, I just graduated in 2019. So I mean, couple years ago, but still to have that high of a burnout rate in people at this age, it's sad to see. And I guess kind of with that piggybacking off of it is a director's position. I have been there for 6 years. I'm currently the interim program director, and I have seen 5 directors go through the daycare. The workload, it's a lot on top of managing the regulations, helping staff, supporting the children, running a business as a whole, the government grants, health inspector, like there's so many aspects to it that the rate and the pay for it too, it's challenging because trying to bring people to Vegreville to pay them I mean, directors get more than minimum wage, but it's super low compared to other areas that we've seen. So trying to bring people in to work, it's kind of like, well, no one's interested in it because of the burnout that comes with it.
Very low wage, I mean, as well, how can we get level 3s in? As I said, we're not close to that, like, as a level 3 without the top up. How are we gonna get people from surrounding areas to come travel when they did the education? They're gonna go to the city instead, where they're gonna offer the average, top up, right? If you're gonna travel, you might as well go into the city.
I guess too, and another conversation, sorry, Latanya.
No, you guys are good.
I had with one of the staff members and a couple parents, they questioned, well, when I was doing tours this summer, they started to question, they're like, well, how long has everyone been here for? A lot of us are long runners. Most of us have been there for 6, 7, 5 years. We've been there for a long time, a couple new faces starting to show up, but also too, I got questioned, well, why don't you go elsewhere? Well, in Vegreville, there's no other real options to go unless you're going to leave the community. So a lot of people too, they feel like their hands are tied because this is what we want as a profession, but where else can we go? Because hands are tied with the availability also.
Yeah, well, I can see, doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, even if it's your passion, you still want to be able to make a living at it, so.
Just ask one more. Yep. Sorry, girls. Just on where you have your averages, are those averages just averages based on here in town on all of Alberta?
And they're
Okay.
recent, correct?
Yes.
And that includes like your city, it's the whole province? Okay, thank you.
It's on the Alberta website page for childcare.
For all Alberta, okay.
And that again, so if you start at the daycare, you don't get your top up till the 6 weeks later. So when you first start working on a daycare, you would expect to see like what the minimum is, and you won't see an actual large paycheck until you've been working for about 6 weeks. So like, it's always back pay. But again, when a person starts, they have to wait for how long to actually see a decent sized paycheck while working at a daycare.
Okay,
Okay, so we jump a few slides. Keep going. So I'm going to just briefly show the timeline. So if we go to the next slide, I break down each of those things a little further and just being mindful of time. Just note that we have had 6 meetings, and in those meetings, our committee has done significant work that I'll break down in the outcomes a little bit more of the work that the committee has actually done in Vegreville to address childcare needs. So if we jump forward we can flip through this because we break it down. It just gives a timeline. If you guys are interested, you can look later, but we go into it a bit more in our outcomes. So if we keep jumping and go straight into outcomes. So there's been 3 main projects that the initiative has worked on. The first one being research. So let's go into that one next. So from that community development meeting in June, we decided as a community initiative to really take the time in July and August and find out what was happening in other communities. So we had a set number of questions all across, everyone asked the same questions, and we asked them to communities that have similar populations to Vegreville so that we could really kind of compare what's going on similarly instead of asking Edmonton what's similar to Vegreville. So there were 4 main themes that came from that. And you can see there's childcare waitlist, facilities, funding for nonprofits, and staffing. And we'll jump into each one. So if we go to waitlist, you know, the same things you guys have been hearing. Long waitlists almost as long as what facilities can hold. Caregivers sit on the wait list, and then encouraging caregivers to register for wait lists as early as possible. As someone who is currently pregnant, I was told, get on it now. As soon as you find out, get on that wait list, or else you won't have a spot. And then if we jump to the next one about facilities. So this was just how they're supported. You'll see a large topic about most of the facilities are supported through municipalities or cities to help funds find support. A lot of the facilities are owned by the town, or they work with municipality and school board to provide funds. But that is mainly just around how facilities are supported by their municipality. That was our biggest question with that one. And then the next one is childcare funding for nonprofits. So where does the money come from? A lot of it is through supportive boards, fundraising for activities. However, then you have volunteer strain. For-profit comes from 2 streams, so fundraising and from owners. Some is from municipalities, government grants, but there are barriers of not having enough funds to provide the proper environment with equipment. And then if we jump to the next one, childcare staffing, all stuff that you guys have heard. You know, it's difficult to find quality staff, encouraging staff to get education, government top up not sufficient, finding enough level 3s. The biggest successes that people had in keeping staffing was, you know, ensuring the quality of the staff and paying them wages, sick days, vacation, benefits. That's not always included in each childcare facility. So then if we jump to the next part, and then the other thing that our childcare initiative did have is we did have a discussion with a nonprofit who was interested in opening a daycare in town. We were very excited by that. It was through a connection to the community. An agency heard and said, you know who you need to contact? FCSS. They're part of this community initiative. They'll be able to fill you in on it more. And they did come to our meeting. They were willing to, you know, take a community collaboration approach, not a competitive approach, really aiming to build partnerships, strengthen childcare in Vegreville. They considered applying for the space creation grant from the government of Alberta, but we're concerned about playground space and facility needs. Our committee did mention finding quality staff would be a challenge. However, they seemed like it would not be a problem. Because they were a new facility, they'd be able to set their fees, which they'd be able then to pay their staff more. However, at the next meeting, the nonprofit informed the committee via email that they couldn't proceed with the expansion to Vegreville because they were currently working on an expansion in another community that was taking more of their time. So that fell through a little bit. But the committee was still hopeful, and we were still looking at other avenues to explore that. If we go to the next slide. So this is the survey that I mentioned earlier. The Vegreville Daycare and FCSS have created a survey together. And from that, we are working on pushing this survey out to really show the need. Because like we said, we hear it, but is it reflected in the data? So this survey has been primarily advertised on social media, including Facebook, Instagram, the Vegreville Moms Group a few different times. I've seen it shared there. It did go in through the municipal scoop. It's gone out through daycare wait lists, those agencies, those community agencies, their distribution lists, as many channels as we can send it through. We are waiting for an update if it has gone through the schools. There will be posters going around town next week through distribution by committee members, as well as there will be a radio session with Talk of the Town coming up soon on that as well. So the survey went out in October and it will be closing in March. So that's kind of one of the biggest things our committee is focusing on, is just really pushing that survey and going to these businesses, individuals, and saying, get your staff to fill this out. You know, you're struggling to keep staff. Hey, here's a survey to fill out so that they can really voice the need. And then if we go to the next slide. So our committee is always learning and wanting to further themselves. The initiative is always trying to brainstorm and find new avenues. As this issue is complex, I've said that a few times, but it's really important to, find these resources and other documents that could guide. There was a Zoom about the role of municipalities in childcare. There is a link to that recording there. The learnings primarily were increasing the number of childcare programs to meet growing demands from families is not possible without more educators, as was touched on a little bit already. Municipalities can expand. They can play an important role in childcare expansions. Childcare is an economic driver. And then if we go to the next slide. It zooms in a little bit. So this is directly from that meeting, that Zoom. This is what they did and brainstormed ways about how municipalities can support childcare, that it's not municipalities directly supporting childcare, but there are other ways, such as identifying service needs, developing service plans, such as the social master plan, supporting educators, subsidized staff housing, making public facilities and land available for childcare, supporting early learning childcare programs, advocating to higher levels of government, ensuring local planning and development guidelines are supportive of licensed program, and service delivery of early childhood education and out-of-school care programs. And then if we jump to the next slide, this is something too that we wanted to highlight and something the committee is looking forward to, whether it is an expansion or bringing a new nonprofit in. There is the Space Creation Grant from the Government of Alberta. It was designed to support access for childcare for those areas most in need. However, the amount of funding that Vegreville can access is limited due to not being a high-need area. So this was determined by the government by the amount of non-school age children in the area compared to the number of childcare spaces available, as well by including licensing spaces such as the daycare and preschool only between the ages of 0 to 6 as a whole. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see that going by this document, it is said that Vegreville has 166 spaces allotted to childcare. As a committee, we kind of question that ourselves. I see a few faces, and that's really where we're looking at is because it only accounts for 0 to 6. And if they are counting for available spaces, we only have a few licensed, and it does not make that number up. So we are looking into where the government did get that definition and created that. What facilities they looked at, where are those numbers, if they are, where do they fall? Because we would like to know as a committee ourselves. I know when I brought that number forward, it was kind of shocking, and then, yeah.
So as a daycare, we're licensed for 49 spaces, but because we don't have the staff, we cannot, fill those 49 spaces. We have 35 children enrolled within the daycare, but we're unable to meet those 49 spaces due to not having the staffing with it.
And then our other licensed places only have around 30 places. So even then, we're not looking at that 166, which is why we're looking at clarification for that.
So we're 97.
Roughly.
The difference is 97.
Yeah.
And do you think the provincial government's working with this number of 166?
This is from the provincial government. This is a government document that you can access if you go to apply to the Space Creation Grant and then look at what kind of funding you can get. That's where you can find this. So it's not necessarily an easy piece of information to find. It was really shocking for our committee to find it. And if we jump forward a slide, and then just one more. So they are just looking at Vegreville/County of Minburn, and we are a moderate need community. So we aren't in that red or that orange. We're kind of in that deeper yellow area. However, if you notice too, we're also getting clarification where they do have Mundare lie, because Mundare sometimes falls under Lamont County, sometimes it falls under here, even though we understand the municipality does fall under the Lamont County. If you look closely, they have that dot right on the line between Lamont County and Vegreville. So also looking to if they're counting Mundare in our area, if so, what does that mean?
Oh, so Mundare may have the other 97 spots.
Well, Mundare doesn't have 97, but just really looking where they got those numbers from so we can understand, again, because too, it's looking from 0 to 6. So it's counting the preschool age Like, it doesn't break it down from just, because a lot of the need is that newborn, the 12 months and up, but if that's not where our primarily licensing is, then is that really reflective of the need? Yeah.
For the spaces that you're short or not filled, is that one staff member or two you need?
So based on our licensing regulations, so 12 months to 19 months is a 1-to-4 ratio, so one staff for 4 infants. 19 months to 36 months is a 1-to-6 ratio. For 3 to 4 years is a 1-to-8, and then 4+ is a 1-to-10 ratio. So staff are outnumbered by kids based on, but also licensing goes based on the square foot per kid. So based on the space we're in right now, licensing came in, they measured based on our available spaces, measuring square foot per child. We are only licensed for the 49.
And I just want to mention that according to our rooms is how many kids we can, but it doesn't make a perfect ratio. As we said, we can't pay educators. So for instance, the toddler room can take 21 kids, okay? 8 times 2 is 16, all right? You're going to take another third staff for 5 kids, but we're already kind of cut with our funds. Another room, the preschool room, 21 again. You can do 4+ in there, then you have 2 staff, then you're getting 1 staff for 1 child, or so this is where it's wonky, is that the rooms are not even, you can't really set up the space to afford to pay people to come in to watch the kids when the room is not even a nice round number. You know what I'm trying to say? So like that is also a big challenge.
Okay, well,
Any questions on that space creation grant, those numbers? Like I said, we are looking into clarity because 166 does seem high for our area.
we'll definitely bring that up with the problem.
Just a quick question. Is it 10%? Is that the cutoff for you going from moderate to high?
Yes, so it's like if they broke it down based on, so again, the population of 0 to 6 and the amount of spaces. So they deem if you have 10% coverage, you're a high need area. If you have 15%, you're extremely high, 10%. High need community, 15. And then moderate need, if you have anywhere between 16 to 30% coverage, you're okay. And then adequate is over 33%. And then if we go forward one more slide. Oh, sorry, back. It was back, my bad. One more. So you can see that they got that number based on having 166, our total population age for 0 to 6 being 595, and they figured that we have 27% coverage here in Vegreville. And this is recent StatsCan's numbers, so they're getting 595 is the most accurate up to date.
Go ahead, Councillor Baird.
Thank you. When they include county, are they calculating all the way to Manville?
And that's where we're looking for
Because,
clarification.
I don't think that's going to work Vegreville, Manville for daycare.
And that's too where we touched on, families driving out of town. There are families that, work in Vegreville, but then go to Vermilion to drop off their child to childcare and then come back to Vegreville to work. There is that happening in our community. But that's where we're looking for clarification because based on it, it doesn't seem like it goes much further just outside. So where's their cutoff for Minburn County? Is it the true cutoff or is it, where does that lie? So that's where we're looking for a little more clarification because it is a little muddled.
Which ministry supplied this information?
That was, I believe, Children's Services. Yeah, Children's Services.
You think they'd take a little more time? I mean, when you're talking children.
And that's where we're
I
looking
mean,
for
you can lose a few
clarification.
adults here and there, but losing children's big. We find that important.
And that's, again, why we're looking for clarification because we're not too sure where those numbers exactly come from, so we just want that clarity going forward.
If we do, then we have that higher funding is available.
Yeah.
Is like the big piece.
Oh.
Yeah, because if
So
you're,
if there were true numbers, the funding would have
would
to be
increase,
increased.
yeah,
That's her whole point, is that
Oh,
more funding
I see a
available.
pattern developing.
yeah.
To
Go
the
ahead,
best of
Councilor
your
Rowan.
knowledge, though, for the numbers that they come up for total child population, they haven't factored in whether that population is requiring childcare. They're just looking at whether they are kids or not. Because, I mean, if you look at Two Hills County, for example, and I'm not trying to put people into an area, but they are a high Mennonite community that have large families, but their need may not even necessarily be the same because there is a certain culture to stay home, you know, a little bit more for one parent. I mean, so to me, this is just taking numbers. It's not applying anything that makes it practical.
Well, and that's exactly, they said coverage is calculated by dividing licensed spaces by the total 0 to 6 child population. And adequate coverage is defined as 1 child care space per 3 children. So again, that's a big age range, 0 to 6, because if you're looking at, you know, even the preschool age needing care, that's a large portion, but you're accounting for the 6-year-olds. And again, with licensing, you're limited in the amount of babies that you can have in the room too. You can only have so many, so.
It stands to reason that if you're in a community that has businesses, we're going to need more and more workers for those businesses. So you could be in a community with less businesses, but a higher child population. The need is actually maybe not even there the same way as the need would be in a community with more businesses.
Seems like a lottery to me.
Yes.
So,
Okay, go
Just
ahead.
one more, Latanya.
yeah, no, go ahead.
What do you think we have for these spaces? 100. What do you ladies think we have? Is 166 is obviously wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, when Latanya brought it up, I snickered because being the one answering the phone every day to the wait list, when I last counted our wait list, we had 63 children on the wait list. And that's constantly phone calls from people saying, we're looking to move to Vegreville. What is your childcare situation like? And then you do have individuals who are very upset to know that nothing's being done for the high need of childcare. And I stepped into the position last April, and I've been trying to re-go through the wait list to see what we can do to accommodate. And there are some people sitting on the wait list still from the beginning of 2022 that haven't got in because it has maxed out at the point of if we can't bring in 3-4-year-olds because we need to accommodate our babies and toddlers that will move up. I've gotten to the point of if we're bringing in a staff, I've been maxing out the classrooms so the girls are looking after 20 kids for just 2 of them so we can max out to bring in another staff to try to alleviate the burnout. Like, it's so contradicting. So I don't think we were anywhere near that 166.
No, with
Like the 49, like we're like in that area, unless again, if Minburn is a part of it, Mundare, 49 spaces, and we're the only one that will accommodate those like 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds. And then like the preschool as well, like if they are counted the numbers, which we believe,
Yeah.
There's restrictions too. I do believe
They're
they need to be
also licensed.
potty trained.
Yeah.
They're not there the full amount of hours. Like we're open 7 to 6. Like
And that was the biggest thing too. If they are counting the preschool, they only do half days, right?
Is that true? Like, not saying they do an important role, or I'm not dismissing that, but is that going to accommodate families that are working? Like, you're working 8 to 9 hours a day, you know, and 9 hours including a break. How will this be your childcare need to go to the preschool?
And our preschool does offer early childcare for those families that need it. That early drop-off, they do offer it. However, again, most of their days are Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, right? You can't go a full week. It's the 2 days, and a lot of them are half days, right? So you don't have the same kids staying that full time. And if they are accounting for the preschool, our preschool, I believe, has, I want to say 25 to 30. I'd have to double check, but that's kind of their range. And it says that it does not account for out of school care. So it does not count for our Ale Horton and St. Martin's out of school care. So that puts us roughly around that kind of 70-ish spaces. And again, that's where we're looking for clarification. How far do they go outside of Vegreville? Are they counting Mundare? But even if they are counting Mundare, Mundare is not a big facility. So it wouldn't put us up to 166 spaces. So I do not know the accurate number. That's where, again, like I said, we're looking for that information and are getting in contact with them where that actually came from.
Do you know how old their data is?
Recent, 2023. Yeah, October 2023. So,
Wow.
People on the wait list want to find out where those, 90s.
yeah. And we can send this out too, so you guys can take a look at it as well. Because like I said, you can only access it if you're going into the space creation grant. That is where you can look at it to see what level of funding you can receive. So it's kind of not out there information. You have to dig a little to find it.
Okay, you've opened up a lot of questions for us.
Yes, I just have a few things left, and then if you guys have any questions, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to hear this, and I know the committee does as well. So if we jump forward a slide. So this is also something the committee is looking at. In that timeline, this is why, as you mentioned, it's kind of serendipity that we are presenting, because our committee is actually going forward, looking at creating an ask for the town and the county on what can be done to help support this initiative and address childcare. This document, the Roadmap to a Quality Early Learning and Childcare System in Alberta, is a really good document because it looks at providing discussion specifically from both federal, provincial, municipality, and then as well direct. It looks at all of those different things, and it was compiled by quite a few organizations that are actively involved in childcare. So yeah, that is something coming forward as well.
We definitely appreciate your committee identifying how a municipality can get involved and how we can help.
Yeah, and that has been a big discussion too, right? Because it often is, you got to do something, childcare, but understanding that there are limitations, as with our agencies in the childcare, as our daycare is saying, there are limitations, and there are limitations for everyone at the table on what they can provide.
Well, I think we all recognize it's a big problem in our community, and it's a problem that's going to have to be solved by our whole community here, so.
Yeah, and then that kind of actually ends my presentation. If we just go to the next slide. I just wanted to mention one more. That we do have an upcoming meeting for our community childcare initiative. We usually meet the last Tuesday of the month. So February 27th at 5:30. It is in person or Zoom at FCSS. So we're also going to be putting out a survey to ask those community members we have in the past. We can provide child minding. We can adjust the time. We're flexible if community wants to meet us and come join the conversation and really brainstorm, because as you mentioned, it is everyone coming together to resolve this issue.
And when is the survey that you have out there? It's going to end in March?
Yes, yeah, in March.
Okay, so we're trying to get that information out to the community, and every voice matters.
Yes, every voice, and that's the biggest thing too, right? Is that survey, I can say as of right now, is not showing a huge need. So it's really important for those that are saying they need childcare to do that survey, because it shows us, how many parents are on the wait list, if there's certain barriers, where are they accessing childcare. It helps us as a committee. We really looked at, being intentful with those questions to get that data to represent that.
I think maybe you should supply this information to the Chamber of Commerce as well.
Yes, and that is going to be.
Because I would imagine, as a business owner, how many days that employees can't come to work because of the child care situation in our community, and it's affecting success of a business.
Yes, and that's even for unlicensed stay homes, which, as mentioned, we do have around, I believe it's around 8. I don't know how many are actually operating, but those are active business licenses within the town. So if they have to close an unlicensed facility, there is no childcare. If they're sick or they have an appointment, or there's an emergency that they have to close, those families then are scrambling to find childcare, because unlike the daycare has some of that staff there that can cover, can adjust. Unlicensed stay homes do not have that flexibility. Okay, so do you guys have any other questions for us?
Go ahead, Councilor Rubin.
I just, the most recent concern that I had from the public that was asking about childcare was 2 years ago. That there was a desperate need to be able to find a space for the summer programming for childcare. So from that desperate time, and parents really coming very concerned about being able to work and be able to manage their lives to this point, although it might feel like we haven't done anything so far, I think coalescing those voices is really important. So I want to thank everybody that's put their time and attention. I attended one of your meetings, and again, I think the will is there. The solution may not be simple as you've highlighted. But I will also say too that Elk Island Public Schools has done the joint, I don't want to say degree, but that's not right. It's like,
Oh, like where they're advocating for the early childhood education.
yeah, so that the
program.
students can take the joint credit programs. And so they're looking at other opportunities. They're offering different opportunities for their students to be able to earn dual credits. That's what I was trying to think. Dual credit programs. So I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of being able to offer that through both the Elk Island Public and Elk Island Catholic to ensure that students have that option. Because I know Kayla and other students that I know have been able to access that programming, which gives you a little bit of a head start. But that still doesn't get you the level 3s that you need. So thank you very much for trying to help the community's children, because not everybody remembers that kids are the ones that we're trying to do this all for, and they don't have their own voice. So thank you.
Well, and that's often heard too in the community is, why don't you open a new space? Why isn't there a new daycare? And again, you can do that, but then who's going to staff it and what's going to happen there? Even with our own daycare, looking at, we've discussed as a committee maybe helping support them to expand, but then, you know, staffing, cost, again, nonprofit, and the rent, facilities, everything that comes with that. It's, as you said, not a simple thing. So we have explored one avenue only to come up with another avenue roadblock and then another. And so it's not as straightforward as what community may think it is.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just remember being on FCSS and this coming to us, and I just think it's important to know that a lot of these initiatives, they aren't just something they're making up to come up with. It's after we're hearing about it in the community. So we appreciate very much you guys bringing this to us and bringing us some stuff that I didn't consider to help us advocating. But also the message that has to be out to the public, especially hearing you, is help us to help them. We cannot go to them saying we just need it. We actually need all the people that are talking about it and putting it on social media and talking about it on sometimes complaint pages to turn around and do the survey. Because if you don't give us the data and you don't tell us where we need those numbers, they're not arming us to advocate, and they're not arming them to cause any kind of action plan. So that just has to be our message. I think all of us have to do it. Everybody in the room, that'd be a challenge we should all have. The next time anybody in the community hears somebody say, this is an issue, we have to tell them to go get that survey and get the information in, because we're not gonna be able to help them otherwise.
And that's the thing too. I know with our daycare, whenever they get a phone call, I know you guys are really great about advocating. You know, there's a survey, we have initiative, and sometimes it is met with a, yeah. So it's hard, right? It's hard, and that's where having you guys help voice that need is greatly appreciated.
Well, I can guarantee you the vision that council has for this community for the future is bringing in industry, young families, and have young children, more children in town. That age group 0 to 3 highly affects school board's decisions moving forward. And it is our intent to bring more young families and industry to our community. So this problem's not going to go away. So we all appreciate you coming tonight with short notice and your committee and the work that you've done so far behind the scenes. We will be strong advocates for your committee with the provincial government coming up through our MLA. And I hope that you give us a list of what you feel that the municipality could help with.
And I want to thank you guys. I know it was a lengthy presentation, but there's just so much good information in there that we wanted to highlight and give really you guys and anyone in the public watching this the full picture of what is really happening. So on behalf of the committee, thank you again for having us here. It was greatly appreciated.
Thank you all.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Sorry, one more thing.
I looked through the wait list just to kind of break up the different businesses in town that I guess the parents on the wait list, what professions they're in. When I kind of looked through this, I didn't really realize when you get a registration form, he's kind of put on the wait list. You don't really look at their professions. But I was alarmed to see that 14 out of the, I guess, parents or guardians on the wait list are for AHS and the hospital. So they're AHS workers, hospital workers. There's 14, I guess, guardians that are unable to return to work in that profession based on not having childcare. 7 are unemployed. 4 are for the town of Vegreville and FCSS. There's 5, and there's actually some individuals that are they're working at universities in the Edmonton, but they want a small town committee, so they're looking at coming to Vegreville. But if there's no childcare, why are they going to leave their place in Edmonton for that? There's different places like Quest, the oil fields, accountings, dealerships, banks, Rocky Mountain Insurance, RJV, Viterra, dental clinics, Highland Feeders, seniors homes. There's a minimum of at least 3 to 4 people on the wait list for all those various professions and businesses. So it's not just sitting in one area. As we talked about the economic growth, it's in a majority of the businesses within Vegreville for parents being on the wait list.
Well, thank you for that extra little push there. And again, you're right. Economic growth doesn't happen without stable and reliable childcare in the community, because it takes 2 parents today to, to get out and have the money to afford to raise children today. So again, thank you all for your presentation, and we look forward for the many successes that are going to come out of your community. So, okay. Next, we have some correspondence from Kathy Allen, Board Chair of Elk Island Public Schools. You've all had a chance to go through this, so we will we'll bring this up, receive and file at the right now. Yeah, this is not, yes. Again, and again, it's so.
I'll make the motion to receive.
Councillor Warwald makes the motion. Why I thought this was a ledge meeting, all of a sudden, I don't know. Yeah, get confused. Again, there's a lot of good information about what's happening within Elk Island Public here, and I think we've all had the chance to meet Kathy now. And so, is there any comments on this letter? Any information anybody feels that else they need from Elk Island? Because we haven't had a meeting for a while. Well, I guess we had one with Kathy as the chair, or not as the chair, have we?
No, our meeting was in the spring and Trina was still the chair.
So I guess we'll look forward to maybe setting us up another meeting in the spring with them, our yearly meeting. Okay, no other comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Business, the event center walkthrough. Who's got that?
That was just on here for discussion. We were going to discuss it at the ledge, but we were missing some counselors. So it's a carryover from the council retreat.
Not real sure. I mean, if it was, right. What was the dates that we'd be available to move some of those cabinets and stuff? That's exactly what it was. And we were waiting for Council Lemko to come back. You know what?
Are we wanting to move forward on that? Have you sent the letter?
Oh, yeah, the letter's gone, yeah.
Do we want to wait for a response?
Oh, no, we wouldn't wait for a response. You know what? We'll get together afterwards, and again, before we leave tonight, we'll get together and find out between ourselves what would be a good time for us to meet down there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up, the amendment to bylaw 072022. And Manager Newton, you got this one?
I can definitely take this one, Your Worship. Bylaw 01-2024 is in front of you today for all 3 readings at this time. For an amendment of bylaw 07-2022, the responsible pet ownership bylaw. The request only in this at this time is to change the definition of peace officer to include a bylaw enforcement officer and a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to enforce the bylaw if it deems necessary.
Okay, so before we have any conversation, I'll take a motion for first reading. Councilor Berry makes the motion. Any conversation, any comments on the amendment? It's pretty, go ahead, Councilor Berry.
Well, just to add a comment, I think it's very appropriate for us to have the bylaw officer who we've just hired be able to do this, so I certainly support it.
Okay, seeing no other comments, all in favor? Carried. Take a motion for the second reading. Councillor Curtis makes the motion. All those in favor? Carried. And next, I'll need a motion for unanimous consent. Councillor Bullock makes that motion. All in favor? Carried. And a motion for third and final reading. Councillor Rudick makes the motion. All in favor? Carried. Excellent. It's done. Next up is councillor reports, and we're going to start with Councillor Warwa.
That as soon as I can make it open. Okay. So I was a little lighter this time around. I had on January 24th, the library's, another library strategic planning meeting. Again, appreciate the opportunity to be able to do some of these virtually. And it was, the group was definitely good sports about it because it was a bit of a breakout session, which was a little unique doing virtually, but I was working in Ottawa and they made that accommodation. So they're just looking at breaking out some of the goals that they put forward and then how to take that into smaller committees moving forward. On January 1st, 2nd, I attended the council planning and reset, and then today, it was February 1st, 2nd, February 12th. Today, this morning, I had a chamber policy bylaw review, and then tonight's council meeting. And just to throw a quick pitch out, reminding everybody that we have the chamber AGM on the 21st. And our policy and bylaw review was just basically an additional meeting to just go over and have everything ready to present on the 21st at the AGM. And that's actually all I had this time.
And the AGM is where?
The 21st. You were going to ask me that again, and I never remember, so I'm going to look on my calendar.
Okay, well, we won't wait.
Have
We'll,
it.
we'll move on. Councillor Barry.
There we go.
Yes, thank you. I'll look the other way. On the 24th, the local sign check presentation, I thought was very good to go to that. And on the 24th as well, the Ag Society meeting, just a couple of points there. They have received a grant where they'll be repairing the grandstands, so that'll make the area an awful lot better by the time the fair comes around. And I can say that planning has started for the 2024 corn maze. So it looks like we'll be working on trying to, with the Ag Society, for corn maze this year again. They felt that it was quite successful last year. On January 31st, had the St. Joe's Community Hospital Board meeting. We're actually considering that we want to talk with both councils. Tara and I would like to hold a joint town and council tour of the hospital sometime in June, if we could get that arranged. I think Tara will be talking with their CAO. So if we can maybe get something like that with a few of the board members, and especially because of some of the alterations in construction that's gone on. They've now got the new lab open, and that's in great shape. They're doing some other renovations to the kitchen area, and they're changing a lot of the flooring. So just to beautify it up, but it'd be, I think, good if we could have council just go through the hospital and really see that we've got a great facility there, and it's being well run right now. We're also looking at board planning session in April, where we can sort of refocus what the board is looking at doing in the future. Just kind of reset, if we want to put it that way, as to where we're at and where we're going in the future. Staffing levels are improving. They've hired a number. I think I mentioned this earlier, but right to the earlier discussion we had, the hospital has lost 2 staff just recently because there wasn't childcare in the town. One of the situations that is problematic there, though, is the ER and the labs have been really busy the last while. mainly due to staffing shortages and such in Two Hills. So that's been resulting in Vegreville taking on an awful lot of that load for Two Hills, and actually a couple of the others. The hospital is once again basically being a hub. We've got a lungs rehabilitation program will be reopening soon. And we have a cardiologist coming to the hospital, and they're hoping to get a cardiac stress test machine at the hospital soon. See, so then, on the February 1st and 2nd, we did our own council reset. I'll just leave that for others to talk to. On the 6th, I sat in on the Vegreville Community Health Service Awareness Meeting. And that is very informative for the various services of healthcare in not just it's focused on Vegreville, but it kind of gives a shed for the larger area. The things that came up is the Mundare Clinic. The doctor that is there is leaving. Handed in the resignation, will be gone by the middle of this month or soon. So the Vegreville Clinic is going to be doing some rotations. They're going to rotate doctor, nurse practitioner in and out of Mundare to try and cover that service for a short period of time. But Vegreville still has 3 openings for doctors. And as I pointed out another time, 2 are waiting for assessment and 1's on a short list. Did bring this up during this meeting, and a couple of the provincial people that are on there with Alberta Healthcare or Services made a little bit of a note that we feel that the biggest problem is we just don't have doctors that are willing to do the assessments. And when you have 2 doctors waiting and willing to come, but they can't get their assessments done, then I think the onus is there that the provincial government has to maybe step in there and try and figure out how they can get the assessments done, or maybe just shorten the assessments up, because I said my family doctors the last couple of times have been newcomers to the community, and they're very competent, and I can't understand why they have to take so long to be allowed to come and practice here. Another thing that came up though is EMS. They had 2,153 events in the last little while, and 1,003 of them have been transfers, and a lot of that has been increased because the Two Hills moving patients back and forth to either take them back here for emergency service, but mainly for labs. So they might be up at Two Hills, but if they have to get labs done, blood work and etc., they have to transfer them here and then transfer them back. So again, that might be another reason why we need to get some of those other transportation avenues up and running. They said that they have an interest in, I believe they have 3 what they call trucks. I don't know, I hear cars, buses, and trucks, ambulances. Ambulance. I believe they have 3 right now, but they're not always on full call. So they have their shift rotations and et cetera. And they're trying to look for more casuals. So that's always a possibility. But they're interested in trying to have another, what it was called a full stay truck, fully staffed, so that they could have more service. But it's what was called the matrix. What is needed in this area compared to what is expected for delivery. The matrix guiding the hiring doesn't support it. Another area was their close relationship with the fire department. It was expressed that there's been what they feel is an increase in fire department help with first responders to medical calls and medical assist calls. And I'm curious on that side. I didn't think of it at the time, but I wouldn't mind knowing just who gets billed for a fire department response to a medical call. I think that would be worth knowing as to just where that billing comes from. Do they bill AHS directly, or if,
Go ahead, Manager Nugent.
Thank you through the chair. We don't bill for medical first respond calls. We do get some funding from the Alberta government that covers some of those expenses, but we do not actually bill. We're unable to bill for those calls at this time.
okay, no, it's just interesting because I guess if there's a bit of an ambulance shortage and the fire department has to make the first response, you know, it's taking up their time too. But there's reciprocal, because actually when the fire department goes out on calls, often the ambulance will show up, because then that's a safety for the fire department too. So I guess there is.
Yeah, that's correct. We don't get charged for when they're on standby for us while at those emergency scenes.
Okay.
As well as any supplies that we use, they usually restock if they're available at the time. We may have to get it a couple days later, but they will restock us.
Okay, that's good information, thank you, because it does, that's what there was being expressed, is a very close relationship. So the other one, other than the ledge meeting, and we had a very short CAO council meeting after that. So the other one I had was the doctor's retention and recruitment. Is teamed up with the RPAP, I guess you'd have to say it, which is another one. So it's a high school skills day, which is being planned for May 15th. So it'll be 5 groups of 8 is what they'll be looking at for students to move through the various stations that they'll be doing, so they'll get some hand-on experience of what happens and takes place in the hospital and the many different healthcare areas there are. You know, so that the students get a good chance on that. And students in the past have here and in some of the other locations around here taken up careers because of it. So there will probably be a discussion coming forward looking for town swag so that we can fill up some bags at that time. And we're probably going to be looking at 65 and looking at maybe some pens and et cetera. So that'll be just some of the things. And I'll wrap it up with saying tonight's town council meeting, which I thought the presentation that came to us was very informative. Thank you.
One question, Councilor Berry, on your report on the retention and recruitment committee work with RPAP, the skills day. Is there any talk of having a booth at the job fair?
We've just had our first meeting, so we have a committee set up, and a lot of those things will be discussed, and I would expect that, yes, I would, once we know what the date that is, I'm quite certain. Those who are organizing it are quite experienced at this now, having done it in a number of different communities around us, and they're very excited to get fully engaged with the schools here and start getting this talked up, because it's predominantly the schools. That's where the students will be coming from, the 2 high schools.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much. Councilor Rudick.
Well, since we last met, I've had a number of FCM meetings. We've got a number of preparatory meetings that are leading up to annual conference that is in Calgary this year. So I've had table officers meetings as well as executive committee meetings, and I chair the elections committee as the past president leaving the board. There will be a vacancy for the Prairies and Territories this year, so all of those discussions are happening currently. So if there's anybody that you think would be a great addition to the table officers, this would be the time to encourage them to run. Also had conversations on January 25th. The current infrastructure pockets of funding with the federal government are being renegotiated, and so they were looking to have some feedback from municipalities that are having a challenge accessing funds. So I'm hoping that some of the advocacy that we've been doing around the easy to apply for rather than the conditional funding that we seem to get in the form of grants that are arbitrary. For example, the Canada Community Building Fund remains one of the most popular. It's easy to apply for. It has had indexing in the past to accommodate for changes in inflation, and it's one of the easiest ones to also administer and deliver. So we're hoping that that will be the choice of the federal government, because it not only allows assurance and surety for municipalities of all sizes, it also allows for the federal government to have ease in application and monitoring afterwards, but that remains to be seen. Council workshop on February 1st and 2nd was very productive, and happy to be able to carve out a little bit of space to be able to talk about what we'd like to do in the next couple of years. February 6th, we met as the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee. I'll let Councillor Bullock talk about some of the discussion there, but good to be able to have some of the other committees that I've been appointed to attend, as well as businesses. And again, I'll say that even the childcare presentation that we had here tonight, being able to consider those that don't always come and tap us on the shoulder or send us an email or type something out on social media is really important to consider. In this instance, the transportation needs of some folks that are an important part of the community. So it was very great to be able to have nonprofits, businesses, and agencies that are all working towards the same goal have conversation around a table. Very productive, and I'm looking forward to see what we can achieve there. And I'll just say tonight's council meeting, and I look forward to being able to see what will happen with the childcare initiative, because I've had a number of parents that have reached out to me, seeing it on the agenda tonight, that have given up and not put their kids on the wait list anymore. They've taken them off and have decided to stay home. And being able to have the option to stay home and raise your children is one thing, but in this case, they didn't have any option, which seems kind of counterintuitive. So they're looking to us to be able to help find some answers, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to bring some of those people together.
Okay, Councillor Lemko.
Thank you, Your Worship. A light schedule for me. January 24th, I had a business incentive presentation at Soul Train, which was nice to see us supporting the businesses in the community for doing some cosmetic makeup on their sides of their buildings. 25th, I had a Rural Development Network meeting, Zoom call, and it's on the Ukrainian Housing Initiative. It's Rural Development Network was hosting engagement sessions with housing providers and those working with supporting Ukrainian evacuees across Alberta. And through the conversations, they would help to develop a more comprehensive and accurate understanding of the state of housing resources and supports available to Ukrainian evacuees from across Alberta, as well as the experiences they've had, successes and challenges of service providers and organizations in connecting evacuees to these resources. I just started it. They invited us, Vegreville and area Stands with Ukraine, because of the successes that they've seen that we've been having with finding housing for Ukrainians. And so, although the amount of attendees on the Zoom call was light, they are encouraged to continue with the process and developing some outcomes to help support organizations like us and the Ukrainians that are evacuating. And I understand March 31st is the deadline for those who wish to come to Canada under the program. We have seen just recently another couple families arriving here, families with young children coming to our community, and it continues to grow. More people are reaching out to us because of the success we've had with the Ukrainians. So our committee's working strong, working hard, and doing what they can to accommodate those arrivals. There should be a few more here soon. On the February 1st and 2nd, the council reset was a great evening and a great day to discuss the future, a little bit about the past and the future moving forward in the next couple of years for this council as we continue with the successes we've had in the past and the successes we hope in the next year and a half to 2 years under this council and the leadership within this room. And tonight's council meeting.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bullock.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, on January 24th, the Community Futures Board meeting, I attended. Some of the interesting things to note there, through the 8 different industry sectors, the Cumulative Invested Fund by industry sector, total of loans that were distributed are 818. So the funds committed in those 818 are $30,338,962. And with the supporting 1,643 jobs. So it's really interesting. That's within the County of Minburn, County of Lamont, County of Two Hills, Strathcona County, and that is all with that. So it's just good to know when these businesses are struggling to get some funding, they could turn to Community Futures and pitch their business to them to see how they could help them out. So very lucky to have them in our area. It's January 24th, the Soul Train presentation, as well February 1st and 2nd, our council reset, which was very good, like the colleagues have said, to get us all on the same page, see where our minds are at and how we're going to handle the next 20 months going forward. On February 6th, the Ad Hoc Transportation Committee meeting. So the associations that are part of this group, of course, is supported by the town of Vegreville, Family and Community Support Services, Vegreville Adults and Seniors Task Force, Vegreville Transportation Services Society, Focus Transportation Services, Yellow Rooster Limited, and Ryan Taxi. So there's a good mix around the table for discussion. The committee is definitely picking up steam. Lots of information coming from my colleague, Councillor Rudick. She has lots of excellent background information on that, helping me through with this committee as well. FCSS has submitted a request for expressions of interest to Healthy Aging Alberta, the provincially assisted transportation project. Did get word back that they accepted the expression of interest, so we'll talk about more of that at our next meeting. Also, the committee is continuing to explore the planning and design stream of the Rural Transportation Solution Grant to conduct the feasibility study. Well, I'm sure that will have lots of conversation with involve childcare in there as well with families, young families, going forward with that. So, and we have our pilot project subcommittee meeting coming up later on in the month, and deeper planning on that. Some of the information we received from other communities and what didn't work is going to play a part in this, and see where we go from there so we don't make the same mistakes. So, and the February 6th, 2024 Ledge meeting. February 6th, our CAO Council quarterly review, and tonight's council meeting. Thanks.
Good. It's nice to see that the ad hoc transportation committee there is starting to expand and get some other voices from the community, and yeah, knowing what somebody else did wrong is nice to know, and it's a good approach. Believe me, a very good approach. Councillor, thank you, Councillor Curtis.
Thank you very much. For me, starting January 30th, we had our ECDEV meeting. I tried to get to as much of it as I could, but I was pulled away with some work obligations there. February 1st and 2nd, we had our council reset, which I too found, very good to get some stuff out and in the open and where we want to go and not forget what we're trying to do here. And a good reset is always nice. The 6th, the Ledge meeting, and then the quarterly CEO meeting, and then tonight's council meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. So on January 23rd, I sat in for the chair of Alberta Hub with the Ministry of Economic Development, Jobs, and they're announcing basically a change in the formula that they fund REITs. And it's based on members, and each year the funding goes down, and the fourth year there is no funding. And they've already removed the REITs from their website. So we have a bit of a problem, because the last 3 times there's been a government change. It's always they're going after REITs, and then we have to go and talk to them because we can't lobby them. And to show them the importance to municipalities, what REITs supply for them. So, and usually it's an election coming up and then the funding comes back and REITs are the best thing in the world. And anyway, neither Minister Jones nor his deputy minister was there. It was the ADM, and of course, they couldn't tell us exactly why the minister was moving in this direction. They were just there to, I guess, feel. Yes, they were there to take the brunt of the questions. Anyway, we are working on a strategy with other regions in the province right now. So the next day, I had a Zoom meeting with the board of Alberta Hub, and we explained to them what was going on, and we've got a plan in place. And I guess it wasn't just Alberta Hub that was on, it was all the other REITs too, and we talked about the meeting we had with the ministry and where the direction we want to go on this. So they're looking for some letters of support from every municipality and hub, and all the chairs of all the different REITs will be meeting with the minister in person after the 28th of February, so we'll get a little work to do before then to get something prepared from the town of Vegreville. I too attended the presentation at Soul Train, and it's nice to see that those incentives, people are taking advantage of them and putting up new signs. On the 27th, I attended the John S. Batouk Christmas party, January the 27th, but it's all elected officials, and it is not just so much for us, it's all the other businesses that work for the Water Commission and the operators and stuff, and it's nice to be able to show our gratitude, and it was a very nice evening. On the 29th, myself and Dan sat down and had a meeting with minor hockey just regarding some of the comments and what we're hearing in the community, and it was a very productive meeting, and CAO Ling was sitting in with us, so I hope that we clarified and let them know that we're doing everything we possibly can for them. On the Feb 1 and 2, the council reset I thought was very productive, and I want to thank everybody for making themselves available, and the staff that supported us. And it was a very nice potluck the first night, and I think that we have a bit of a plan to how we're going to try to get a few of the things that were important to us accomplished in the next 20 months. So it was well worth it. Then we had the Ledge meeting on the 6th. And on the 7th, I attended NATIGO, the Northeastern Alberta Alliance for Growth and Opportunity, and it was in Murnum. And we have started making plans for our next objective is to take on healthcare and the issues in the northeast of Alberta. So right now we have a consultant hired who is gathering data of all the health facilities in northeastern Alberta. We will be reaching out to administrations and hospitals and doctors' offices, and there will be questionnaires going to all municipalities. And once we've collected the data, we are just introducing ourselves to the Minister of Health. Actually, every minister is getting a letter from NATIGO explaining who we are and what we're about. And we want to work on solutions for healthcare that are only to do with the Northeast. And we feel that we have a lot to offer if we were to use our own facilities. There's 6 long-term beds that are vacant in 2 Hills because they don't have a lab tech. St. Paul couldn't move someone to one of those facilities. People in Boyle can't go to Lamont for some reason, and it's compounded, and it's not just boundaries, and to say that we are in the north or half of the Northeast is in the north because they don't share anything. So we are putting together a plan, and we will be taking this directly to the minister and the premier. And if they don't have a real plan on how Alberta Health Services is going to look and how they're going to deliver services, we feel it's our job to educate them what is the best way to move forward for the Northeast. So that's what our plan is. So I'll keep you all updated on that. On the 8th, I had the meeting with the John S. Patuque Water Commission. And on Saturday night, February the 10th, it was a very nice evening at the Legion. The Vegreville Kinsmen had their Life Membership Award Night, and it was very well attended. We had all the life members, or just about all the life members that are still alive today. We had a moment of silence for the deceased life members, and we brought in 4 new life members in the Kinsmen Club of Vegreville. Blair Bauer was one, Mike Webb was one, Ryan Iwaniak was one, and Rory Sperling was the other. And they've been longtime kinsmen and committed to this community for a long time. And it was sure nice that we don't get to hang out with the kinsmen. I'm a K40 member now, but I am a life member of the Kinsmen Club. And it was nice to see all the other life members that came out for this. And then they had a casino night. They hired an actual company, and they had tables, and it was a lot of fun. They had roulette wheels, and they had everything you could think of, a craps table, and everybody got $1,000 in chips. And as you played through the night, when you cashed out, you got tickets, and they had a bunch of prizes, and it was catered. It was very well done, and it was a very nice evening. And I can't not mention there's 3 life members in the Cadet Club of Vegreville too, and 2 of them were theirs. So. Anyway, it was a big night for kin in this community, and the Kinsmen, Cadets, and K40s have a long history in this community, and I don't know if everybody knows, but at one time, the Vegreville Kinsmen Club was the 2nd largest Kinsmen Club in the country, only behind Toronto. Yes, we were. We've had people on the national executive, the district governors. So we have a very strong history in Kinsmen, and a lot of Cadets, and a lot of communities today are only a kin club where they come together, and it's men and women and stuff. But we still have actually a resurgence in the Kinsmen Club in Vegreville right now. There are a lot of new members, and so anyway, it was a very nice evening. I'm very proud to be part of that organization. And tonight's council meeting. So is there any other business of council? If not, we have one closed session item. So I would take a motion. Councilor Wawa makes a motion to go into closed session. All those in favor? Carried.